Richard Serra, I believe, we're speaking to, although it's by Bill Freeland. And I think in many ways it is a shanty town. Let us now praise famous man James A.G. Walker Evans. And they would kind of discover, I think, what they call today a lack of Magna Carta, which is sort of a group that might be living off the books outside of US tax laws and things where the houses have no zoning and in some sense are part of the super duper continent theory, which would be Oz. Some people wonder if it's Australia. And, in that sense, we're all together, all of the nation states of the world, without need of crossing the 7 oceans in order to emigrate anywhere. But that's just a theory, but sort of a pocket of Great Depression, that you could find. Maybe the rest of the USA is doing very well economically. So that's what happened really with the Barack Obama administration. Some people don't feel that he was USA president, which would suggest that we lack the right to same-page information in the newspaper industry, where, say, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal is not the same in New York City as it is in California or Chicago, the lovely state of Maine, or Dallas, Texas, or something. So in that sense, it would present quixotic classist questions, where the haves and have-nots are sort of warring, at least in the subtle and unseen, for a de facto regime. And, and the popular idea of it, the Casablancas film, and the celebrated Hollywood agent and Parisian modeling agent, John Casablancas, whom is of late today, passing away recently. His name, when translated from Castilian Spanish into English, means white houses, Casablancas. And people feel the movie does things, that it has kind of a Germanic dance on the timeline, and the Maltese Falcon, some people wonder if it was once called Casablancas, which would locate in the north of Africa in Morocco, as if using medieval forms of spy technique, we might, hide behind a facade in a lovely little town in Pennsylvania. This might be a hunter in the George Catlin sense of it, and he would tie this around his body in some sense and pose as a house or enter into a field of lambs, and these interesting suggestions of fundamentalism or the human eyes of the window panes in the vernacular or vocabulary of Richard Serra, David Hockney, and these others in the contemporary moment, as they talk about, I suppose, the Iron Curtain, or what could be a billowing curtain, the expression of atomic matter in alchemy, where you might open the room up into a larger space. And, in the use of glass, this is by my grandfather, whom was the professor of master drawing at Moore College of Art in Philadelphia, professor emeritus there. And in my poetic license, we are looking for Avalon for John F. Kennedy, Jack. I leap from a wonderful book, my pen pal and mentor. He's also of late Robert Bly. He would win the National Book Award in 1962 for his first verse published, Silence in the Snowy Fields, during the John F. Kennedy legacy. And his title suggests Renaissance, Iron John, as if fuerza, John F. Kennedy, strength for you, sir, and he would carry forward and come through as perhaps, a man of the street, an old elder or something, rubbing elbows with we in the guilds or something, and he would come forward as a knowledgeable Renaissance in the face of socialism. And it's been a wonderful answer in the past as we kind of talk about the World War II, today making peace with it, I suppose. In the 1980s, when I was a high school student, attending Pencrest with John F. Kennedy, or Jack, John Henry Thompson, Donald Skinner, those were some of his names. He's today really remembered all over the popular television in these Dawson's Creek, on various cinematic releases that express a sentiment that there is an omnipresent awareness of him in, say, young people's lives, that they've met him. I enjoy talk about academics and service to country and all those nice things. This would be, I think, speaking about Portugal, a time when people thought maybe Portugal arrived from the Spanish Main of Brazil. Did Portugal have an earthquake at one time? Usually people feel that the European Union, by Maastricht Treaty, the U.S. Constitutional Bill of Rights, and its laissez-faire are so conservative that these kinds of prehistoric world tragedies don't occur. There was an earthquake which would set Voltaire and some of the others during the Enlightenment to wondering about Portugal and its geology and formation with the rest of the European Union continent. Spain is at that time academically challenging Holland, or vice versa, as the Dutch prepare to win confidence in paper currency based on the American gold standard or the Switzerland gold standard. This would talk about some Egyptian ideas using the Star of David. The interesting piece of leather here with the red line, perhaps as if a fillet, in some sense a venison, or I don't know, suggesting perhaps a second skin. I don't know. You know, it doesn't have to be necessarily stealthy. This might be Native America, the Four Corners country. I've often thought these interesting weights, maybe Parsifal. A feeling that we are connected, some people wonder, by the intestinal tract to a great mother, Gabriel Garcia de Marquez, whom is the Colombian Nobel Prize Literature winner in the 1980s for 100 Years of Solitude, did a famous interview with Bill Kennedy, our family friend, the Albany Cycle, upstate New York, famous American novelist. He found him in Barcelona, which is one of the cutting-edge fine art colonies of the contemporary moment in the world, and asked him about this interesting bloodline. You know, it rolls down the hall and around the corner and then down the steps. And what is that exactly, Monsieur Marquez? And he said, oh, it is the umbilicus. And he didn't want to elaborate anymore. And in some sense, this rope would be a similarity of tying you to sort of a great mother or a dependency upon the terrible father. And they're sort of thought to have no children, no parents of their own, or somehow in mystery of how they originated, would perhaps be to the world a militaristic arrival into command, where you and I might find that aberrant and so forth, a super duper race, a super duper man, a super duper continent, and they would defy the empirical laws by sort of falling into the psyche and eliciting this fall in, say, a young novitiate artist, say on the day of 9/11, a group vegetal vision, which USA Edenist Jim Dine feels is animism, an animistic group vision amongst the youngest of our fine art Napoleonic curatorial world. Yeah. I'm Jonathan Vitale, the newest hire onto the fine arts desk at the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones Incorporate. Cheers now. The Domesday Book, I believe, takes after the word doomsday, suggesting a time of listlessness when Great Britain had been warring with France King John would come home in 1086, realizing this super duper continent problem, and would establish the Magna Carta, which would become, I suppose, the empiricism of latitude and longitude given to all men. You know, the king's chart, his map of Atlas, made available to all in the right to same page of information that ended superstitious feelings of the haves and have-nots, in some sense, prohibiting knowledge, the library, the canon, voting, and these other various how-to questions that the newspaper answers. The piece that I enjoyed show you, in some sense, responds to Donald Judd, the famous hieratic copper boxes in the collection of MoMA, which would speak as if there were a de facto regime in some epicenter of the ellipses where you and I are at the distant peripheral. And if that were the case on 9/11, the fine artists feel that fundamentalism takes over, that there is an autocratic fall into the psyche of the pleroma, where there's sort of a wielding of the group visionary field, and there would be an eclipse, say, over a young person in the effort to throw the professor to establish your own voice, your own creative identity. My grandfather, USA Edenism Originator, Bill Freeland, suggests that the conversation was really between fine artists about the world using maquettes here in wood. These two wonderful abstract sculptures in wood of function, recently purchased and into collection of the John Kelly III family, Tolleyfrau, Princess Ireland, the Princess of Monaco, Grace Kelly, her personal collection.